Good morning, everybody. Happy Saturday. Welcome to Coast College Football Pregame Show. I'm your host, Uncle Shally Bill Shawcross. He's in the bottom for some reason today. I don't know why. But coming from us all the way from Jamaica, man, is my Buckeye brother from another mother, Mr. Cottrell Simpson. How are you, sir?
Hey, man, I can't complain. I've been talking to you guys for a little bit, probably like the last 10 minutes or so backstage. And, I don't know how long it's going to hold up here, but had to at least stop by, say good morning. Beautiful, beautiful Saturday morning here in sunny Jamaica. So had to stop in for a quick second.
I don't know what it's like in Oregon. I'll tell you, for me personally, I'll go tell you to screw yourself because it's cloudy and rainy here. Also, I'd like to point out it is winter break on college campuses, and as you can see, I'm still at home. Alex looks like he's at home. Cottrell is clearly the kid on campus that has the rich parents that fly him down to vacation somewhere on Christmas break every year. It's annoying, but that's what I have to work with, so that's what we're going to do today. But all kidding aside, we're glad that Cottrell's at least here for now. Hopefully his Wi-Fi holds out at his fancy resort, and he can give us some college knowledge today. But last but not least, breaking out the new blenders I see this morning, Mr. Number One, Mr. Black Elmore. Mr. His football team finally gets to play this week.
So happy.
How are you, sir? So happy.
Look, man, I'm great. No Black today as there's no real significant games today. So I'm just relaxed. I'm chilling like Dion. All right. I'm making eye contact, though. Okay. You just can't see it. But no, I'm excited to be here. It's going to be a great episode. It's been a great week, Cottrell. I'm glad you're able to join us for a little bit. And Bill, I'm in the top row because I'm running the graphics today. So I deserve to be in the top row. Okay. So
that is true. So all praise and all negative feedback can be directed at Black Elmore today, depending on how
just
the
positivity
of the show goes.
Just positivity. If it's negative, Cottrell didn't train me, blame it on him.
Fair. I like where your head's at. But normal show today, a lot to get into, obviously. We'll start with headlines, a lot going on in college football. We've been very lucky, since we started breaking the huddle. We've had stuff to talk about every week. Obviously, the first round of the college football playoff, we have to recap. We got to preview this week's games, obviously, as well. And if we have time, we'll get into some just general bowl talk. There's been some batshit crazy games that have happened already. Couple 4 or 5 overtime games. Navy beating Oklahoma. How down is Oklahoma?
Not even just that. You tell me that's the team that Bama was supposed to get in, and they lost to that team. They lost to Navy.
Love that point. Was going to get there, but love that point. Love that point. You're probably 30 seconds behind down there, so it's fine. But and then we'll see what else we get into. We have time because But I think we're gonna have a lot of discussion on the recaps and the previews. So, Alex, as always, sir, get us going.
Shotgun, DC right, flip 90, dig, on the center, ready?
All right. Welcome to Break the Huddle. I can't believe I just pulled the Matthew McConaughey. I didn't even mean to do it. Anyway, welcome to Break the Huddle. We're going to start off first with some light news, but still interesting enough. It's called the Deion Sanders effect. And in case you're not sure what that Deion Sanders effect is, essentially Michael Vick, Deshaun Jackson, 2 players, both played for the Eagles together as teammates. And as you can see in this picture, both have just been announced as head coaches of college programs. Deion Sanders went from Jackson State and now, of course, is at Colorado, turned that program around arguably. And now Michael Vick is going to give his opportunity to do so at Norfolk State. And then we have Deshaun Jackson, who's getting his opportunity at Delaware State. Both of these guys, first-time coaches, obviously pretty well-known programs in the lower levels, other than D1. Any super big issues with this? Is this kind of going to be the new norm where older retired football players are going to start just becoming coaches? And did Deion kind of set up a path, or is this kind of a one-off situation?
I mean, I think he set up the path, but I think he's also set up kind of the prototype on how to do it. Me and Gene actually talked about this on Wednesday, so I'll be a little bit brief on mine so Cottrell can get in here. I think it's great for both of them. I see Michael Vick as more of a coach than Deshaun. I could see Deshaun getting tired of this in a couple years and being like, all right, like it was fun or whatever. But That being said, I mean, he's serious enough that he interviewed for the job and took it for a program that kind of needs a bump. Delaware State is a perennial kind of 2 to 3 win program, every single year. So, I mean, for them to get a high profile name like this, and if he's serious about it, I mean, he obviously knows football. So, Michael Vick, I think, is the more intriguing one for me because, like I said, I think if you ask me between the two of them, I could see Michael Vick being a coach at a major program in 4 to 5 years. I think they're both doing it the right way. And again, I think Deion is kind of the prototype for it. You have to learn. I don't think if people really stop and think about it, how many decisions and how much responsibility you have running a college football program. You have to hire all your coaches. You have to recruit. You're taking care of the kids. It's a lot. It's a full-time job, as we've seen with all the major D1 guys now. It's literally it's a 24/7, 365 a day year kind of cycle. It doesn't stop. So if they both have, bigger college aspirations, this is the way to do it. You go to schools like this where there's no pressure. You learn what to do, what not to do, what works, what doesn't work. And you have a couple good seasons, and then you get your name out there, and you're a proven winner. You can go to a bigger program. Like, I would love to see Michael Vick go back to Virginia Tech and turn that program around. There's too many people that have just got into college football last 10 years that forget how good Virginia Tech was in the heyday of Frank Beamer. Like that, they were a borderline college football playoff team every single year. Great school, great stadium, great atmosphere. So, like I said, I give them both credit. I think they're doing it the right way. And even for Michael, for Vic, I think it's part of just kind of the second half of his story. As a player, he got in trouble, went to jail, came back. And then I think this is just another way of him giving back and kind of part of his, his redemption and his, giving back to football and giving back to just, society in general and doing the right thing and, proving that he is just a good person and that made a mistake. So I like it all around for both of them.
Yeah, and I think it definitely means, I think it's a good thing for former players, especially at these HBCU schools where, before Deion, they weren't really getting a lot of love in the sense of, you would have never had a Travis Hunter go to, Jackson State before Deion got there. So, I mean, I think with, just the names attached to it, Michael Vick, Deshaun Jackson, you're going to get a lot more players that want to go to those HBCUs and give those HBCU schools an opportunity there. And I agree with Bill in the sense of I think that Michael Vick is going to be in a situation where he's going to have the opportunity to, use this as like a stepping stone, similar to what Deion did in going up to Colorado. I think Michael Vick has shown you that he has the football knowledge. He's been on Fox as a commentator and as an analyst. And I think what he's done since he's gotten out of prison, just in general, like with the community and what he wants to do, like for kids and just in general, I don't want to say change his life around because I know about that whole situation. It's a mess up and down, like why he went to prison. But I just think, Michael Vick is going to be the name that draws a lot of kids in, and just with his knowledge on football, especially from the quarterback position, I think it's going to be very intriguing for a lot of people moving forward that, want to play Division I football, but don't necessarily have what it takes to go to the, single A right away.
Well, hey, both these programs have everything to prove this season. Norfolk State coming off a 4-8 last season, and then we got Delaware State coming off a 1-11 season last year. So really, both these programs really nothing to lose in trying this out. Obviously, Michael Vick was also looked at for the head coaching job at Sacramento State. Sacramento State was talking about trying to move up to D1. They had a lot of money in NIL, a lot of money to throw his way. But he didn't want to make his decision based off of money. He wanted to go somewhere where he could have the biggest impact, and I think he made the right decision. Sacramento State, of course, ultimately hiring UNLV's offensive coordinator to be their head coach and kind of filling that spot. But other than that, is there anything else, or is there any other players, actually? Warren Sapp, for me, comes to my mind. He's the defensive coordinator. defensive line coach. I can't remember at Colorado right now. I could see him. He really enjoys coaching since Deion added him to the staff. He's kind of found being rejuvenated, has a purpose now. And I think would be someone I would like to see in a head coaching spot. Is there anybody that stands out for you guys as far as possible head coaches from former players?
Sapp, I think, is in a perfect spot for him where he's a position guy. I don't think he has quite all the responsibility, obviously, as Deion. I think that's a really good spot for him. I don't know. Again, I think it's a big jump from going from a D-line coach to like a head coach of a major university. I'm not saying he can't do it. I feel like he's probably happy doing what he's doing. But that being said, listen, it's to Cottrell's point. It's probably you're going to start see it kind of be a trend. Like if these guys really want to get into it and dip their toe into it and see if they're ready for it. And again, it's great for the HBCUs. I mean, like Michael Vick again. Like Michael Vick came from a very bad area. Like when he got recruited and went to Virginia Tech. And again, I think it's well documented Deshaun Jackson's kind of connections, not connections, kind of with gangs from where he grew up in California. So it's, I think both those guys, to Cottrell's point, are able to really give these kids a lot of knowledge, give back to the HBCU community, and give these kids a chance and really show them what it takes and what they're capable of, which is, a hell of a lot more than probably what they're getting now. So I'm trying to think. For some reason, I can see Steve Smith as a name that strikes me. He's probably making too much money on TV to go coach, but I feel like he would be a hell of a coach, which the way his attitude, the way he plays, the way he'd be able to motivate people. I think Steve Smith could be a really good coach. That's the one that sticks out to me. I'm trying to think, man.
I want to see Jameis Winston as a coach. Could you imagine his head coach speeches? All right, man, we're going to eat these W's, and then we're going to go out there, and God's going to win this game for us.
But listen, it's funny, but I don't disagree with you. But I mean, it's all about how you relate to your players. And if your players go on the field and believe in what you're saying, and if they do, and if that works, then, I mean, he would be good. I mean, there's different ways to coach.
True.
Winston, I mean, I'm trying to think of the guys that just recently retired that are like on TV right now. Steve Smith is the only one that's really sticking out to me. I think a lot of the other guys are just too comfortable probably doing what they're doing to go back into the grind of college football.
Yeah, I think for me, I think Steve Smith is a great name, especially just seeing what he does all the time with like the Senior Bowl, like year in, year out, his coverage with the Senior Bowl and how he talks to players, or not even just the Senior Bowl, but Combine as well. I mean, I think he's a guy that can relate to kids, and with him being like, younger, still being in tune with, how everything works now, but also being like the leader and, having that success. I think he could definitely be someone that draws people in. The other one I think of, it kind of falls under the category that you talked about, Bill, that's probably making too much money and just has too much stuff going on for him. But for me, it'd be Ryan Clark. I think,
that's a great one.
Him, he's unapologetically always himself. And I think, that's what you want as, like, if you're a parent of a kid, I'd want to send my kid to somewhere where I know he's going to get like great morals instilled into him, in the sense of, if I believe in it, I'm going to tell you straight up, like, that's just how I am. And then from an X and O standpoint, I mean, what he's able to do every week, week in, week out on like Sunday Countdown, or just all the shows that he's on. I mean, he knows the game very well. Obviously was on a very successful defense. And again, it's another person that'd be able to relate to a lot of these college kids, because he has one of his own that's playing at Notre Dame. So I think that would be an interesting name if he ever does decide that, hey, I want to give back a little bit more, as opposed to just being like that TV personality.
Ryan Clark's a great one. I haven't think of him. And you're right. He's probably making way more money than Steve Smith. With the pivot blowing up now, I can't imagine what he's making. He's in a pretty comfy chair right now, I would think.
Well, hey, just because Deion had success, he wasn't the only coach that's found success in the college ranks. Another ex-pro that's hitting headway is Eddie George at Tennessee State. Just took his team to 9-3 record, and he was named Big South Coach of the Year. So this method, there's not a lot of madness to this method. It has been proven successful in the past. We shall see if this is a big stepping stone for, and we'll also, it'll be nice to see how the recruiting trail goes for these two coaches for Delaware State and Norfolk State. I have a hell of a time saying Norfolk State. Both of those teams will have amazing recruiting classes this upcoming year. I'm sure it'll be interesting to see how they're able to turn those programs around. And it'll also be interesting to see if these two coaches can catapult it into a bigger job. Deshaun Jackson saying this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and he's not passing it up. Both these coaches are excited. But that's the Deion Sanders effect. Anything else you guys want to throw in there before we kind of hit up some transfer portal news?
No, part of me really wishes they would have got their shot 2 or 3 years ago where the money wasn't an issue and they could have really recruited on their name and on their experience, because I think they would have had a better impact, a faster impact than they would now. I still think it's going to take a year or two, but I think they'll both be okay. I mean, Norfolk is, I think, a little bit easier place to recruit to. Delaware State, I mean, it's Delaware. You're really going to have to sell it if you're D-Jack. So, but we'll see what happens. I mean, it'll be really interesting for us to come back to this next year in the middle of the season and see where both of them are.
Yeah, absolutely.
Alex, out of curiosity,
Yes,
first
sir.
time all season, I'm asking, can we call an audible in the huddle?
Sure.
I just want to hit on the insurance on like the
Sure.
Colorado program. I know I don't have probably like that much time left here. Portal, I can dive deep a little bit more next week, but the whole insurance on Shedeur and Travis Hunter and all the other players that are draft eligible. I mean, I think that's just a genius idea. And that is how ultimately you get players to play in bowl games. And I think when you see that potentially the number 1 and the number 2 overall pick in Shedeur and Travis are playing in a bowl game that essentially means nothing for them, I mean, I think that's a big thing. And for me, I love the approach that Deion has taken to the bowl game in general, with basically saying, hey, if you're healthy, you're going to be playing in this game. But then not even just to just give Deion credit, but BYU's coach as well. He's made it a business trip-like approach, as well. He's basically told his team, like, hey, if you're going to be here, no one's sitting out of this football game. We're going to go out there. We're going to try and win it. So I absolutely love that approach. And I think what Deion is doing, like, we can talk about it from a recruiting standpoint and like what he did to get Travis ultimately to Jackson State and things like that. But as a whole, I think Deion is doing a great job in terms of being a trailblazer for the sport and coming up with these new ideas of how to make the game how we intended it to be played, in the sense of, hey, now that Shedeur and Travis have gotten insurance, why can't these other schools like a USC? Granted, I don't think Caleb Williams would have ever played in his bowl game last year, but regardless, like, why can't you get these big time insurance policy on players? And it's not just the star players either. You got guys like Jimmy Horn or LeJontay Wester, who could be potential later round picks, but something happens to them, they have that insurance money to kind of fall back on. And the one thing for me that like has always resonates with me during this time of the year is thinking about the Ohio State Notre Dame game, where Jalen Smith literally was the best linebacker in the country, would have been the first linebacker off the board, but then he tore his ACL and ultimately fell to a second round pick to the Cowboys in the NFL. And he really was never, as advertised per se. A situation like that, he was playing in a bowl game that wasn't, the CFP, really didn't have anything huge to gain there. And it ultimately backfired on him. But if he had that insurance, at least he would have still some money to kind of fall back out there. Not to say that he's, broke or anything like that. He was a second round pick, got a second contract. Like, he's fine. But he definitely missed out on millions playing in that kind of bowl game.
Yeah, and for those of you that don't know, Bill, before you jump in case you haven't heard about this, the University of Colorado has reportedly taken out the largest insurance policy in history. It's an undisclosed amount due to privacy law, but it's covering the whole Colorado team, but primarily Shedeur and Travis, as they're arguably 2 top 10 picks, 2 top 5 picks, arguably. They play tonight against BYU at 7:30 Eastern time. Bill, take it away.
No, I love it. I think it's just a little bit more I guess, tricky depending on the situation. I mean, there's some school. I mean, it's easy to protect Shador and Travis with the big money policy. They're both going to be top 10 picks, like Cottrell said. But there's only two of them. There's going to be cases where it's a little bit more difficult. Whereas, if you have more, like just off the top of my head, because I know this, like Michigan's going to have 4 kids go in the first round this year. It's a lot of money to cover all 4 of them and make all 4 of them play. I still think it's the right move. I still think I hope this helps turn the bias around and make these kids be like, okay, if I go play, the worst case, I still go home with, blah, blah, blah amount of money, rehab, get ready for the draft, and I'm ready to go. My career still goes. So I'm hoping it turns the narrative on that and we start to skew back that way where you see all these players do it. I think certain schools it'll be a little bit more tricky for certain schools some years, depending on what their class going out looks like draft projection wise. But again, Deion kind of being a trailblazer and kind of, on the surface looking like he's doing the right thing by the kids, obviously, and their family. So again, I hope this helps push the needle back that way.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you. I would hate to see – I always hated seeing players go out to the bowl games and get injured and have it affect their draft stock or their playing careers. So I think this is a great move. I think we're going to be seeing it a lot more with some bigger names. Cottrell, anything else you want to throw in about the insurance on Travis and Shador, or anything you want to throw in otherwise before we jump into transfer portal news?
No, not really. I mean, I think, Bill, to your point, like with Michigan, when you have like 4 guys that are going to go in the top – in the first round, I should say. Of course, it's going to be a little bit more money to take out policies on all of them. And even just thinking about like last year's Michigan class, where maybe not all of them go in the first round, but you have, I don't know what the final number was, 13, 14, 15 kids drafted or whatever. It's going to be a lot of money there. But I think also when you have that kind of turnout, that also is going to be, indicative of the kind of success that you have. And so in Michigan's case, when national championship last year, they would have the money to cover, those players' insurance policies and things like that. And I think if you're a school that has 4 first-round picks, you most likely should be pretty successful, which means you're bringing in revenue and you should have the money to cover, some insurance costs of these schools. Now, I'm not saying, of course, you're going to have your one-off situations where a school like, Pitt or Vanderbilt or something like that, they have that one great year and, you have multiple players that go first round, or you have, 7 or 8 kids that are going to be draft eligible and things like that. But I think as a whole, if you're in a situation where you're sending multiple kids or you have one big time athlete, you're most likely going to have the money to put some insurance on these guys.
I agree. Yeah. I mean, listen. I'm even talking about. Listen, Michigan has the money to insure all 4 of those kids. So there's no doubt in my mind, and I would say any of these schools have the money. Pitt, Vanderbilt's $60,000 a year to go there. So I mean, it's all these schools have the money. It's a matter if they want to do it. They want to get in the business of this. Obviously, if you're in the college football playoff, you don't even have to do it because these kids are all going to play anyway. So Michigan didn't have that problem last year. It would have been more of a thing if they would have done it this year. But again, it's a great first step, and I hope it is. I just hope we see the pendulum swing back. So, because if you tell me 3 years from now this becomes the norm again, not only are you going to have all the college football playoff games that are great, then when you're watching Colorado versus BYU, and I know I'm getting the full roster on both teams, that makes that a great football game. Like if Michigan was playing Alabama in 4 days and both teams were playing their full rosters, that's a great even New Year's Day. That's a great bowl game, but that's not what we're getting. So, I really hope that's the way it goes back to. That's the way it used to be. So, these kids played the bowl games no matter what. So that's what I really hope we get back to.
I think there's a way to even maybe start putting that in your NIL package or have someone dedicated directly to that. Through NIL, it's like, hey, you sign with this firm here or whatever, do a commercial for them. They're going to take out this $5 million policy on you, or however that goes there. I mean, I think there's, especially with the way the NIL is now, there's so many opportunities to figure that out.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, there's talk. I mean, NIL is. We're gonna have a huge NIL discussion on the last episode of the season because there's so many changes that could be made. Whether it's making the kids sign 2-year contracts to make sure that they stay there longer than a year, including playing in bowls, insurance. Like, there's so many things that they could do to change the NIL as it currently is and make it better. So we'll definitely have to add that as a topic before the end of the season. I like where your head's at, Cottrell. But we're gonna jump over to the transfer portal. Nothing crazy, no huge new names have really entered the transfer portal. There are a few still big names available left. Zachariah Branch has not committed to anybody. Takario Davis, cornerback out of Arizona, highly recruited 4-star. He hasn't committed to anybody. And the craziest thing to me is that KC Conception out of North Carolina State is still available and has not committed to somebody. He's one of the top receivers available out of all of the transfer portal from start to finish. And I'm surprised that he's still kind of there on the chopping block waiting to get picked up from a team. Is there anybody that's really standing out to you that's kind of still available, or any last minute pickups that you're kind of happy about?
For me, I'll go quick here just because I know I'll have to head out of here soon. But it's two, and the first one's going to be a guy that we talked about before, and that's Malik Murphy. Malik Murphy not officially putting the pen to paper yet is a little concerning to me in the sense of, hey, these schools are figuring out their quarterback spot pretty quickly here. I know there's some guys like that are still currently playing, like one of them being like, I know for Ohio State, their backup quarterback, Devin Brown. He's silently committed to Cal already. So like we expect that move to happen and things like that. So just behind the scenes, there's so many things that are going on. And so for Malik Murphy to leave that Duke program, I feel like we've talked about it every week, but for him to leave Duke and still not make a decision, like that's absolutely wild to me. And then the other one being, the one name that you brought up already, Zachariah Branch. I mean, I think that's a guy who can quite literally change your program. Like, I think it can have your offense going from a top 50 offense all the way up to like a top 15 offense. Like, I think he's that kind of game breaker if you use him in the right situation. So if he's able to go to, one of these teams that are in the college football playoff or that made college football playoff this year, or even a team right outside of it, like Alabama or, Miami, things like that, I think he can be a great get for one of these schools there. But I think that's probably the biggest name in the portal. And then ultimately seeing, when these teams in the college football playoff lose, who else, or if there's any big names that ultimately hit the portal, moving forward.
Yeah, Branch is a big one for me. Branch is the kind of like Cottrell said, he is the absolute instant kind of game changer. Like if a team gets him, their offense instantly becomes better. Team becomes better. He's just a dynamite player. Just what he does on the field. He is an absolute game changer. He's going to make somebody very happy. He's obviously taking his time and I guess weighing all his options, his offers. I'm sure there's probably a gazillion of them. And then we'll see what happens, between like Cottrell said, I'm sure there will be one or two surprises once these teams start getting knocked out of people hitting the portal. There always is. And there's always a couple head scratchers that, names of kids that are really good players that we never think are going to hit the portal, and they do. So that will happen in the next coming week or so. And then we go from there, I'm happy with this week. Michigan had a good week, so I am cautiously optimistic going forward and see who else they sign.
Well, I have two call-outs for the transfer portal that I want to announce. Obviously, Lee Beebe Jr., I've been high on him from UAB, running back. Really discovered him because of NCAA 25, followed him this season, had a fantastic year. My dude has officially announced his commitment to Indiana. I was trying to get him parlay his way on to the University of Oregon, where he would be a huge asset. Unfortunately, did not work. Dan Lanning did not read my tweet. That is okay. I still love him. But he did commit to Indiana. I think Indiana is putting together a nice little quiet class on the offensive side of the ball for next year to go with that rock-solid defense. And then the other team I want to call out, who's actually the number one team in the transfer portal right now, is Texas Tech. They have the highest rated portal numbers with 17 commits over teams like LSU, Ole Miss, and Auburn. And Mississippi State is also rounding up the top 5. So a couple names that you don't see in there often in Texas Tech and Mississippi State. But I'm excited about Tech. They've gotten a lot of 4-star talent for on the defensive line to really shore up that front. And I'm excited. Like I said, last year they were 8-4, but they allowed 6.37 yards per play, ranked 123rd in the country. And Texas Tech is doing everything in their power to shore up that defensive side of the ball. So look for Texas Tech to make some big news and some big waves in the Big 12 next year. But that's my kind of one call out. Anything else you guys want to call out for the transfer portal, or are we able to move on to recaps?
Look how you left Michigan out there. It's okay, though. That's fine. I understand the bias. It's fine.
No, but that's because Michigan always has a good class. When was the last time we saw Texas Tech with the number 1 class in the country?
I'm just saying Michigan's like number 2 or number 3 on every portal list so far. You just skipped them over.
I'm looking at – I am right now the up-to-date top 5 right now is Texas Tech, LSU, Ole Miss, Auburn, Mississippi State.
What ranking?
24/7.
Oh.
So – I get that Michigan always has a good recruiting class, but as of right now, a couple unknown names are up there, and that's good to see for college football, man. We want to see Mississippi State good in the SEC. We want to see Texas Tech. Texas Tech's offense is rolling. They look like they're a fantastic team. If they can get that defensive side of the ball going, like that's a perennial powerhouse in the Big 12. We're just sleeping right now. We're waiting to wake up. So
they got to get the rest of their team on board. That's the problem. Having a good portal haul is great, but when your recruiting class is in the 50s, it just doesn't help.
All right. I think we're done with the transfer portal. Sorry about missing you said there. I accidentally unplugged myself. But we're going to jump into the college football playoffs. The first round recaps. Cottrell's laughing. I don't know why he's laughing, but I like it.
I was laughing at you, saying you unplugged so you couldn't hear Bill.
Oh, that happened
while he was finishing stuff.
Bill's just rolling his eyes. That's it for Break the Huddle. We're going to jump over to some college football recaps here. I'm going to go ahead and throw up the scores. Now, obviously, last week we did review Indiana Notre Dame. I just threw that score up there just so we can look at it as a whole. Bill, take it away.
Real quick here, gents, before we go too crazy here, about to head out. But don't
you've been saying that for 20 minutes.
I know. We finished Break the Huddle. I'm getting out of here. There's a pool that's calling my name here.
It won't be open later.
It's Jamaica. What else is there to do?
Exactly. It's 10 o'clock. It's not even like prime pool time yet.
But
they don't got pepperoni.
I have videos. Letting you know who wins and why they're gonna win. So don't worry. It's all gonna be all right.
Cottrell's just trying to get a spot at the swim up bar. Bar. Dave, that's all. He wants that corner spot in the shade. I don't blame him.
Get a Bahama Mama for me.
You can't get hammered in the sun, bro.
Thank you. Dehydration is a thing.
It is.
All right, Cottrell. Thanks for jumping in, bro.
All right.
Thanks for being a part-time host.
It must be nice. All right.
Yeah, listen, we're not going to spend too much time on Notre Dame, Illinois here, or Indiana, because we went over it last week. So, where to start? None of these games were relatively close. So let's just start up top left. We'll in honor of Cottrell, we'll start there. Ohio State, Tennessee, because out of the 3 games, this is probably the shortest game to go over here. This was an ass beating by every sense of the word. This is a boat race. Mud stomp, whatever the hell you want to call it. That's what this was. 42-17, and Tennessee scored late, mind you. So this was a bludgeoning. This was the game. This was the night game. Twitter got real quiet after this game because there was a whole bunch of SEC people all over Twitter and all over social media when Clemson got stomped, when SMU got beat. Oh, Alabama could do this, and Ole Miss could have done this, and then Tennessee went out and got their balls beaten in, and then all of a sudden all the SEC people disappeared. It's the best Ohio State's looked all year. Tennessee, I listen. I'm a big Josh Heupel guy, and I love what he's done in Tennessee. Because again, Tennessee is a blue blood program. College football is absolutely better if Tennessee is good and in the mix. They have a huge fan base. As you saw, me and Alex were teasing Cottrell all week. How many Tennessee fans got their hands on tickets for this game? There was a lot of orange in that stadium, way more than there should have been for the first ever home college football playoff game. But that being said, they were not ready for this game. They came out flat. I said this on Wednesday. The more concerning thing to me, a lot of their kids look disinterested, and that's a problem for me. Problem for me going on the road for a college football playoff game, and you have a bunch of your kids just kind of going through the motions, not playing with a lot of intensity, not playing with a lot of heart. That's a problem. That's a problem, and that's that goes back up to the top. As much as I love Josh Heupel, you can't have your kids out there playing that way in a game with the stakes this big. So Ohio State's offense looked great. Ohio State's defense did exactly what I thought they were going to do. They were going to commit to stopping the run, and they were going to try to keep Nico in the pocket and say, if you can go 35 for 45 for 400 yards and 3 touchdowns and beat us, then go ahead, kid, and do it. If you can't, we're going to beat you. And that's exactly what they did.
Yeah, I mean, Tennessee just really couldn't get anything going. I don't think the cold played a part, and I don't think the crowd was too much of it for them to handle. Ohio State was just better. Nico looked completely average out there, finishing for less than 50% completion percentage. I think they only had like 125 yards or something extremely low like that. And they were really honestly able to have some success on the ground against Ohio State's defense. The problem is when you're down 21-0, you don't have time to build up that run offense. You don't have time to get the running back, momentum in the game. So you really had to be a throw heavy offense. And like Bill said, they scored late, making the game, look a little bit more close than it actually was. But Ohio State jumped up 21-0 in the first quarter, and they were. I was watching clips of Tennessee news reporters that were at the Ohio State game interviewing Tennessee fans in the parking lot leaving during the first quarter because it was so cold. They were down 21-0. They even said themselves, our boys did not come to play today. It's very obvious. So shout out to Tennessee for getting their hands on those tickets and really honestly turning the shoe into half orange, because they really honestly, that was great traveling. That's a great atmosphere. That's the exact atmosphere we all envisioned when we heard that college football playoffs were going to be on campus. So shout out to Tennessee and their fans. And unfortunately, this is just not their year. I think Nico is going to be a great quarterback. I do think his performance, though, did drop him out of my Heisman list, which I had him in last week. So hopefully he can, develop a little more in this offseason. And next year he turns it around a little bit and then comes with a chip on his shoulder. But hey, Ohio State, Oregon, we've been talking about it all year. We're going to get to see the rematch.
Listen, I'm with you on the Nico thing, but we also have to all remember the kid's a freshman. So we all need to pump the brakes with him a little bit. But yeah, listen, I think that was kind of the performance that I think Ryan Day needed a little bit, just for a little bit of breathing room and, kind of calm the critics a little bit, because I think even if he loses this week to Oregon, it's a close game. I think a lot of people get off his back, but we'll see what happens. We'll get into that game in a little bit. Let's drop down to Austin. We'll go Texas versus Clemson, 38-24. I think a lot of people are praising praising Texas here. I think Texas played really well. I'll be honest. I'll give Dabo credit. I thought Clemson answered the bell pretty well here. I thought this game could have got out of hand. They were the opposite of Tennessee. They had a couple spots where they were down by more than 2 touchdowns, and you could kind of see that, the tide or the rock really just ready to fall down the hill, and all the momentum go to Texas. And those kids fought their ass off. They stayed in the game. 38-24. It's probably a little bit of a bigger score, not really indicative of what the game was. I think Clemson played well. They battled. Texas just has too much talent. Quinn Ewers had a great game. The defense played well when they had to. Overall, a really solid performance for Texas. I said this last week on both shows. I think everybody's looking at Penn State's route and thinking it's Cupcake City, and there's not enough people talking about how easy Texas's road is. They went from Clemson. They're going to get Arizona State later this week. And that puts them in the semi against either Ohio State or Oregon. So their first 2 games, again, I think Penn State, if you look at Penn State, I think Penn State, you would look at it and say that's a great draw, but Texas is right behind them compared to everybody else. So Clemson, I think a great kind of, I hate moral victories this time of year, but kind of a great moral victory to kind of build on. And hopefully Dabo can turn the corner again, just like Tennessee. If Clemson's elite, it's good for college football. Not, they were pretty good this year. If they get back to the elite, really contending for championships, makes the ACC better and makes college football better. So hopefully this kind of lit a spark under him again. He kind of looked enthused again at the end of the year, a lot way more energized than he had the last couple years. Hopefully this kind of turns the corner for that program and they kind of start to trek back upwards again. And Texas, again, I think they played great. I think they look nice. They just don't look on the same level as Ohio State and Oregon. And I'm sorry, they just don't. This game didn't convince me otherwise.
Hey, you got to convince me. I agree with you. This is probably the best game of the first round. If I'm being honest, Clemson played tough. Klubnik may have worked his way onto my Heisman list. Speaking of Heisman list, after his performance over last weekend, 336 yards, 3 touchdowns. They just couldn't get a consistent rushing attack to help him out. And then Quinn Ewers, you said that he played a great game. I thought he was pretty pedestrian. 202 yards, 1 touchdown. He did have the interception, but if you watch the game, you know that interception wasn't honestly on him, so I can't really hold that against him. But this is where I was shocked. Clemson had the right game plan. All right, let's force Quinn Ewers to beat us. They dropped back. They were kind of letting the short passes go. But where they really struggled was at Texas, which is the 49th rushing offense in the country, absolutely broke out with 300 yards, over 6 yards to carry. And they absolutely destroyed the front of Clemson's defense, and they ran all over them. Over 6 yards to carry. They really did whatever they wanted to. They scored 24-38. I thought Clemson in the second half had an opportunity. Their defense played extremely tough, matching all of Texas's scores. And going into the fourth quarter, I thought there was a chance Clemson pulled within 7. I thought they had a chance to possibly tie it or even pull ahead later in the game. But Texas ultimately shut the door. That rushing attack was too much. They were able to control the clock, run it out. I thought it was a fantastic game. Go ahead.
No, I said it was.
Yeah, and there's rumors of Cade Klubnik supposedly possibly entering the transfer portal after that game. When they interviewed him, he did say that right now he just wants to reminisce in his last game of the football season and say goodbye to the seniors he's done playing with. So he didn't really give a definitive, I'm coming back, guys, but he also didn't give a definitive, I'm out. So I think if Cade Klubnik can stay in Clemson next year, I think Clemson's going to be that team to beat in the ACC along with Syracuse. Here's a little preview. But no, I thought it was a fantastic game. Shout out to Clemson. I'm glad that they gave a great fight versus Texas, but Texas was just a little bit too much. And we're going to see Texas go against Arizona State in this round, which we'll preview here soon. I think that's another good matchup.
That was the Cade Klubnik. I'm going to go home and check my email and see what offers I have in there. Answer is what that was.
Hey, I do it. It's safe. It's a safe answer.
Same. Agreed. Leave your options open. Mm-hmm. Speaking of Syracuse, I wish Cottrell was still here. You sure Will Howard was the right choice? You sure you don't want Kyle McCord, bro? Are you sure?
We can't ask that question right now because, unfortunately, Will Howard went off over 300 yards against Tennessee. So it's kind of hard to argue right now. But
I know, but Kyle McCord in one season just broke like 9 ACC records. Are you sure, though? Are you sure?
If Kyle McCord can reduce turnovers next year, like I picked SMU to be kind of like the darling of the ACC this year. Like Syracuse is by far in the front of my list for next year because 52 points against Washington State in a bowl game. Obviously, not everyone was playing. A lot of transfers for Washington State, but he just looks absolutely phenomenal under center and under that Syracuse offense. So I'm excited for next year.
The problem with Syracuse is they're like the Cincinnati Bengals of college football. They're like, yeah, they scored 52, but they gave up 45. And that was with Washington State starting quarterback not in the game. So it's,
True.
I'm not saying Syracuse can't do it, but that defense needs to, that defense needs to be transformed for next year if they're going to compete seriously with Clemson and Miami. And I mean, right, I don't think Florida State can be as bad as they were this year. So
true. Yeah, it's crazy because when you look at Kyle McCord's stats, he only had one game under 321 passing yards, and it was 280 against Virginia Tech. Like, this dude had almost over 5,000 yards this season, 4780.
know.
I didn't realize, like, the amount of yards he had. Like, I knew he was having some crazy numbers. I didn't realize, like, how crazy of a season he was having. He had a revenge tour. Okay, where to next, Bill? Enough of Syracuse. You want SMU, Penn State?
Last but not least, SMU. Listen, Penn State was going to be a hostile environment. I think SMU ducked it a little bit with it being a noon kickoff and not a night kickoff because that would have been absolute chaos. They were one of the feel-good stories this year. I was all about it. I wanted them to get in the college football playoff. You were on them from the absolute get-go from the beginning of the season. They picked back-to-back weeks to play two of their shakiest games of the year, and it cost them. Talk about a nightmare start. Again, you're in a whiteout, Happy Valley, throw a pick six to start the game, and it just not to use the cliche with it being Penn State, but it snowballed from there, and it was this was a game where you mentioned the weather for Tennessee. I don't think the weather bothered them as much in that game. Some of SMU's players looked extremely uncomfortable at Penn State. And again, I think the start to the game, the two pick sixes in the first half, you could see just the energy and the soul almost drown from the kids. Penn State controlled the game defensively, and they did exactly what I thought they were going to do. I felt like they were going to get pressure with that front four, and they played really aggressive in the secondary and the back end and let those kids eat, and that's exactly what they did. Overall, I think Penn State's defense played great. Their offense was okay. It didn't have to be great. SMU really never got into this game. Penn State's defense was just smothering. That is why one of the reasons why they are on the short list of teams that I think that can win the national championship. They're very reminiscent of and when Ohio State plays well, they're the same way. They're both very reminiscent of how Michigan played last year. Elite defense, run the ball, pass when you have to, get it done. Dominating win. They're going to get Boise State, which we'll talk about shortly. SMU, Cinderella story comes to an end. I still loved it. I enjoyed the ride. I know, Alex, you did even more so than me because, like I said, you picked them in the beginning of the year. But absolute great foundation and building block for SMU to build on coming back next year. If they can keep everybody and they become that perennial team now that the kids got all the experience. The moment's not going to be too big for them. They know what they have to do in the bigger games next year, and they could be a force again in the ACC next year and the college football playoff. So I'm really curious to see how SMU looks at the beginning of the year. Penn State moves on and gets ready for Genty. So, did you watch this game?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely watched this game. Honestly, there's two plays that really, and they're both in the first quarter, that really honestly spelled the beginning of the end for SMU. And that was on the first opening drive. They forced a punt on Penn State side. SMU gets the ball. They get decent field position on like their own 40. They drive down. It's 4th and 1 on Penn State's, I think it's like Penn State's 9. Jennings rolls out. He has clearly the first down right in front of him. He could run 3 yards, run out of bounds, keep the drive going. However, he ends up dumping off a little dump pass to the tight end, who is wide open. You can't get more wide open than this in the college football playoff game against Penn State. And he throws behind the receiver. Tight end goes for the one-hand catch, drops it, turnover on downs. So instead of rushing for a first down, continuing the drive, or throwing the ball on target, they turn the ball over. Penn State drives a little bit. And then next possession, second play, Jennings throws an interception for a touchdown. Those are the two plays that, for me, spelled the end. SMU was driving. SMU had success on offense. However, they just couldn't sustain it. I think once they got behind the 8 ball, they started to struggle. They started to panic. They started to act like they hadn't been there before. Just like Bill said, they didn't have the experience. And ultimately, later in the game, they asked Preston Stone, who stuck with the team, hey, we want to go in and finish this thing off. Preston Stone politely declined and then committed to Northwestern like an hour after the game. So that'll be exciting to see Preston Stone in the Big Ten. But no, I mean, I'm honestly proud of SMU. The defense of SMU really is what impressed me the most. They did not stop fighting the entire game. No matter what type of bad situations the SMU offense put that defense in, they were doing their best, getting the 3rd and long as where Penn State would have to make a play, or forcing them to punt. Like, the SMU defense was honestly the MVP of that college football playoff game, even though they lost. The score says 38-10. Trust me, it is not on the defense. They played fantastic. Anything else you want to throw out there about Penn State SMU, Bill?
No, I mean, I think you mentioned the opening drive. Press it through the ball, and you can see the wind kind of grab it, and like you said, it pushed it behind the tight end. They get a first down there. Even if they put 3 points on the board, it could be 3 points, it could be 100 or 7. I mean,
it could be 100 points.
It's dramatic, but no, it changed the mindset of the game, like you said.
Exactly.
Now you're kicking off at least. Offense isn't coming on the field with a bunch of momentum from the defense getting a stop. You never know, and that's why game flow is so important all the time. But
there was two other bad interceptions he threw also later in the game that I can't excuse either. But yeah, it was pretty bad. Penn State's defense, though, shout out. They were able to apply pressure. They were able to put him into situations out of the pocket where he was clearly uncomfortable. So Penn State did exactly what Penn State needed to do in front of their home fans. So I can't do anything but tip a hat at those guys. James Franklin had his team ready for the first time ever.
True, but I'll tell you this: they followed Clemson's game plan to a T. It was get him off his mark, make him throw, either make him feel like he was rushed and he had to get the ball out, or get him off his spot in the pocket. And he struggled, and he did it. He did it 2 games in a row. So I hate to say it, but I kind of feel like the book on him is out there right now. So I think he kind of knows what he needs to improve on next year. I think the problem with him is too he's a little bit short. So I mean, I think he sees things, and if he sees them late sometimes with the speed of these cornerbacks, he throws the ball and he thinks it's in an open window, and it's really not. So those are little things he needs to work on next year. Maybe throw guys open a little bit sooner, or just get out, just feel more comfortable being outside the pocket and throwing on the run. So, but Penn State pretty much copied what Clemson did. They got in his face, either threw the ball early like he did on the pick 6. They never saw the kid. Like you said, even if he makes a better throw, again, the wind did factor in on the throw, but all you do is run 2 yards and run out of bounds, and they get a fresh set of downs. They're first and goal there. So that could have dramatically changed the game. We'll never know. I don't think SMU wins if they score there, but it does change the game flow and change the momentum. So SMU really got set a rebound. I think they'll have enough coming back next year to be contenders off the bat, and Penn State's rolling, man.
Absolutely. Hey, before we get off this slide here, obviously you can see the scores. There's been a lot of talk on both sides about does the first round having such lopsided differences in the scores, does that affect anything going forward as far as how they look at teams?
It shouldn't, and I'll tell you this is why. If you want to break it down in a logical point of view, the last 4 teams to get in are playing in these games. So not that they should be bad teams, but if you're ranking them 1 through 12, the 4 weakest teams are playing in these games. Averaged, I think if you average it out, I think the average margin of victory was like 17 points or something. Somebody brought up a good point of view. The last 20 Super Bowls, the average margin of victory is 16 points. And that's supposed to be the best 2 teams. That's a championship game. So it's going to happen. Next year, we could get 4 first-round games that are decided by field goals. I think a lot of these games, the problem with a lot of these games is, A, the matchups and the whole cliche of style, styles make fights. You have this in every single situation in all these 4 games. Like everything like Ohio State did is stuff that Tennessee struggles with. Penn State's the same way. We're going to stop the run, make him throw, great secondary. The disaster happened with the 2 pick 6s. Notre Dame, I'm not going to go back to it, but I told you so. Indiana played 2 good defenses this year and struggled mightily. Played a 3rd one, struggled mightily. That was not a surprise to anybody. They can hype Indiana up as much as they want to, but all the pundits that pick Notre Dame for the same reason I told you guys about for the last 3 weeks. No surprise there. And again, Texas is just a little bit better than Clemson. So, and again, 38-24, if you watch that game, again, like we just talked about, it wasn't really indicative of what happened on the field. That game was played closer than what the score was. That was a good football game. Like Alex said, that was the best game of the 4 by far, and it was. That was a good football game. Now, if you want to argue what we're going to get next round, that's a little bit different because I think a lot of people think Penn State are going to blow out Boise State, and a lot of people think Texas is going to blow out Arizona State. And it might happen. But that being said, they won conferences. That's the rules they set up. Like, it's one of those, it's like everybody agreed to these rules, and now that it's like not playing out exactly how we thought it was going to because we didn't think Alabama was going to lose 3 games this year. You know, we all had Ole Miss in the playoff. We didn't think Ole Miss was going to lose 3 games. But when you go to Kentucky and lose, and when you go to Oklahoma and lose and score 3 points to a team that just lost to Navy yesterday, you're not getting in the college football playoff. Sorry. It's not, you know what I mean? It's not. Would we have all liked Alabama, Ole Miss, and Michigan being instead of SMU and Boise and Arizona? Yeah, probably. Yeah, it'd be a better playoff because it'd be the 12 probably biggest fan bases in the country. Yeah, we would love that, but that's not what we got. You can't take stuff away from the kids that went on the field and earned it, and that's where we are. Now, the only thing, me and Gene talked about this on Wednesday, the big gripe is the reseed because Oregon's going to get Ohio State. Now, mind you, if you look at it the way it played out this year, they were getting Ohio State in the second round no matter what. Even if you reseed it right now, Ohio State's the lowest team left, they would get Ohio State in this game. And that happened because Ohio State lost the Michigan game. That's the domino effect of what happened in Columbus. If they beat Michigan that game, they go to the Big Ten championship game. And even if they lose to Oregon there, then they would have got the Penn State treatment. Ohio State probably would have been ranked 5th or 6th. They don't get them in the second round. You guys probably still end up with Georgia or Penn State or somebody like that. You still have a tough game, so it doesn't matter. But I do think they're going to reseed. I think if you see one change after next season, which is the first time they can change it, I do think after the initial round, I think they're going to reseed the teams. I don't have a problem with it if that's what they do. Like I said, this year it doesn't change anything. You guys would have got Ohio State in that game anyway. If we're being honest, I've been on the get-go from it for the last 3 months. I think they're the 2 best teams in the country. If they both go out and play their A game, I think they're heads and above everybody else. You're going to have to beat them eventually. And honestly, if you beat them in the semis, in the Rose Bowl, I think it's better than try to do with all the pressure, with everything on the line in a championship game. That's just me. But I'm tired of the crying. I am. I'm tired of the crying from people whose teams lost 3 football games. Like, I'm just over it. Like, you don't have a leg to stand on. And the constant whining and, well, if this happened, that happened, blah, blah, blah. You went to Oklahoma and scored 3 points. You went to Kentucky and got dominated by a team that won 1 Power 4 game, and it was against you. You have no argument. You have none. I don't want to hear it. Like, it's over and done with. So I think if they do reseeding, like I said, I don't have a problem with that. But I just think everybody is overreacting to the reseeding because of the Oregon-Ohio State game this week. And again, if you looked at it, if we reseed it right now, you're still getting that matchup.
Yeah, and I told Control a couple of weeks ago before the first round games that I was actually totally okay with getting you guys in the first or in the second round, quote unquote, our first game, because realistically, we want to be prepared.
Don't say you guys. Don't say that.
I don't even remember saying you guys. But hey, whatever.
Don't say you guys. Ever again.
I was talking to Control about that in Oregon, Ohio State possibly playing in that second round. And I told him that I was totally okay with it. We're going to be coming off. Obviously, we haven't played in a few weeks, but we're coming in totally healthy, totally prepared. We've had great weeks of practice. You know, Dan Lanning is a motivator. He's not going to – a lot of people say, oh, I hate the bye because it gives them time to rest on their laurels and not be in game shape. There is no way at HE double hockey sticks that Dan Lanning does not have this team ready to go. What was it? Tez Johnson, when they asked him after the Big 10 championship game, was that a lot of pressure for you? He's like, no, this is a Tuesday practice. Like, this game was a Tuesday practice for us. So Dan Lanning's going to have this team ready. So I'm not worried about the layover or the delay or nothing. I'm excited for them playing in the second round. And speaking of the second round, Segway Shally has made an appearance on Coast to Coast. Where are we going to preview these this next round games first, Bill?
You're pushing the buttons, brother. So
That's true.
I wish I had that power, but you're going to kind of decide where we go here, and there we go. All right,
we're going to start here first.
We are going to start here. The Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl, Arizona State, Big 12 champion versus Texas, SEC runner-up. This is in the Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta, Georgia. Definitely SEC country, but I think Arizona State's going to travel well here. Listen, I said this on Coast to Coast or on Wire to Wire on Wednesday. I think Texas wins this football game. I do. I think this game is very reminiscent of the Clemson game, though. I think this is a battle for Texas. I think Arizona State, the one thing they can do well is run the ball. It's one thing that Texas struggles with sometimes at stopping. If they can keep that Texas offense off the field, and when they are on the field, make them, have 8, 9, 10 play drives and not score in 3 or 4 plays, I think they have a chance to keep this game close. I think Scatterboo is an absolute horse. Nobody wants to tackle that kid on full rest. I promise you that. He's going to run somebody over in this football game. That kid is a horse. You're not going to want to meet him in the hole 30 times in a game if you're a D-backer or safety. It's not a good business decision. It's just not. And I will tell you this. We talked about South Carolina a lot down the stretch, about how they were the hottest team in the country. Guess who won 7 games in a row to finish out their season as well? Arizona State. And they beat some good football teams to do it. They absolutely dominated a solid Iowa State team in the Big 12 championship game. They are scrappy, man. They're scrappy. They play with a lot of attitude and a lot of confidence. Now, this is also a game that if Texas can come out and get off to a big start and you shake that confidence and you shake that attitude, this game can get out of control very quickly. But they're feisty, man. I said this on, Gene asked me to describe them on Wednesday, and that's how I described them. They're feisty. They're scrappy. They have a lot of kids that fly around and try to make plays. They're aggressive. All things you could use against them, but you have to execute to do that. Again, I think Texas is the better football team. I expect them to win. I think the spread on this is like 13.5.
Yeah.
I think Texas wins by 10 or less. I really do. I think Arizona State can run the ball, be effective, and they have a surprisingly good passing game. So I think Arizona State is going to play with so much energy and heart in this game. I think they stay in it. Again, I think Texas wins. I don't think they cover, though. I think this is a really good football game.
I agree. I think this game is completely underrated. Everyone's kind of looking past ASU. Like, hey, they're lucky to be here. But let's look at this. The last 2 Big 12 champs are playing in this game. Arizona State this year, Texas last year. Okay, a veteran. This is a game of youth versus experience. And they both have great advantages to them. A veteran signal caller in Quinn Ewers versus a freshman phenom in Sam Levitt, who's had a fantastic freshman season at Arizona State. One of the main reasons that they've had this amazing season. And then you also have the tenured coach, Steve Sarkisian, and a young and up-and-comer from the Oregon coaching tree, might I add, in Kenny Dillingham. People are going to say that Arizona State can rest their heads and feel accomplished about this season, but that's not how they're feeling in Sun Devil country. And Kenny Dillingham sure as hell is not giving his boys that message. He's going into this game believing they're going to win. Their last 4 games, they've played 3 ranked opponents, defeating all 3 of them and ultimately ending all 3 of their chances to get into the college football playoff. So this Arizona State team has been playing with pressure on their shoulders for the last 3 weeks of the season, and the 4th week being the Big 12 championship game. So I think Arizona State's going to come into this game and they're going to be well prepared. Here is where I think the buck stops, though. Texas's defense is just too dang good. Texas hasn't allowed a team to average over 3.7 yards per carry since November 9th against Florida. And even before that, they only had allowed 2 games this season where our teams average over 4 yards per carry on the ground. And that's where Arizona State makes their money, is running with Scatabo up the middle, around the outside. He is a Toby Gerhart of the offense. He is going to power his way through that Texas front line. But that's it, though. Texas's front line is going to absolutely have a field day. This inexperience of Arizona State's team, though they deserve to be here, I fully deserve that ending Kansas State season, BYU season, and ultimately Iowa State season. But I think Texas's defense is just going to be too much. I don't think Quinn Ewers is going to be the reason Texas wins. I think that defensive front is going to be the reason they win. I think that they continue to dominate that front. I think Texas, again, forces Arizona State to throw the ball. I think Arizona State averages less than 4 yards per carry. Again, like Texas has proven they've had the ability to stop their opponents from averaging. And I think Texas takes care of business. I do think the score is not going to be as vindicative as close as this game is, but I think Texas takes care of business by 17 in this game. The spread is at 13 right now, started out at 12.5, but I think Texas wins by three possessions, unfortunately.
All right. I think Arizona State averages over 4 yards a carry.
Think
in
so?
This game. I do.
All right. I hope you're right.
I mean, even if you meet him in the hole, he's going to fall forward for 2 yards. Like I don't think that line's just going to stuff him. And
you think this is the best running back that Texas has faced all year?
I don't want to say
I know
best. He's the most. I think he's the most powerful back they've faced all year. I think he's unique in what he does. Toby Gerhart is the exact comp for what he is. He's got pretty good speed, but the dude's just a big muscle. That's what he is. Like, he hits you in the hole, and he's going to hit you. Like, you're not hitting him. I think that matters. You look at teams that run the ball well. I mean, and again, the fourth quarter, you're just like, I'm not tackling this goddamn dude again. Like, I'm not. Like, I'm like, it hurts. Like, I'm not doing it.
True.
Like, and that's how they wear you down. If Arizona State can get this in the fourth quarter, they got a shot. They do. I do agree with you. I think going into the fourth, it's probably like a 10-point game. They probably trade touchdowns, and that's probably where it ends. But you look at like Derrick Henry, like that's what it is, man. Like, you might stop him for 2 quarters, but you're using all your energy to do it. And then come the third and fourth quarter, he's still running full speed, not bothered by anything. And you're like, I just don't want to get run over again. I don't want to do this again. And that's what he is, man. He's an animal. I think if they can average 4.5 per play, per rush, I think they're in good shape.
I would agree. And half the battle is just getting to that average, of course.
Yeah.
Like I said, this is going to be a fantastic game. When does this one start? This is the early game, right? This is the 10 a.m.
This is
the 10 a.m. game.
I'll tell you right now.
Yeah, yep, 10 a.m. January 1st. It's the morning game. Well, 10 a.m. my time, so 1 p.m. your time.
Correct. Yeah. So this is the early game on New Year's.
Heck yeah, I'm excited for that. That's gonna be a great slate of games on New Year's Day. Anything else you want to throw in about the Texas-Arizona State before we kind of jump? Oh, actually, you know what? I'm sorry, I forgot Cottrell, who was not here on the episode. He did actually upload us a little video on his opinion on Texas ASU. Right. So go ahead and lean back, relax, and let's enjoy that.
All right, so next game I want to go over is going to be Texas, number 5 Texas taking on number 4 Arizona State. Arizona State, obviously, coming off of a bye. Texas coming off of a really good win against a Clemson team. I think this game is pretty interesting. With this game being the highest spread of all of these games so far, I think this has the potential to go one of 2 ways. I think it can go exactly how the spread looks, and Texas wins in pretty easy fashion, or it could be one of those games where Arizona State, they run the ball effectively, and we see Quinn Ewers have one of those games like we saw in the game against Georgia in the SEC championship game, or even the game that he had against Georgia in the regular season. So for me, I think it comes down to, if I'm Texas, again, very similar game plan to what Penn State would have against that Boise State team. You cannot have Cam Scatterbo beat you. He's a game changer. He's a difference maker, and that's a guy who can literally run through the heart of the South. So I think for Texas, I'm keeping everybody in the box, and if Sam Levitt beats you, then so be it. I don't think that's going to be the case, though. Texas, in the first game against Clemson of the playoff, they had a lot of success running the football on the ground. I think when you can run the ball, obviously that makes Quinn's job a lot easier. And, I think Arizona State is one of these hot teams. I also think that, with them, it may have done them a disservice to sit for a week because, they were one of the hottest teams in college football. We know the win streak that they've been on. And I think them sitting a week and Texas getting that extra week to figure it out offensively will be the difference in this one. I like Texas to win rather comfortable. I don't think Cam's going to have one of those, 150, 200-yard performances today. And that's ultimately what Arizona State's going to need to win the football game. So I like Texas to win rather comfortably to move on to the semis.
Well, there we have it. Cottrell is on my side, winning pretty handedly. Obviously, only time will tell. Anything else you want to throw on there, Bill, before I throw up the next game?
No, I mean, I think outside of the Oregon-Ohio State game, I think this has the chance to probably be the best overall played entertaining game of the four, again, kind of like Clemson-Texas was. So, I think people are looking at it like, it's like 1 o'clock game, like blah, blah, blah. I'm hyped to watch that game. I think it's going to be a good football game.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And honestly, just like you said, you think this might has the makings of being one of the top 2 games of the weekend. This next game I'm throwing up there is the one that I think actually has the recipe to be one of the top 2 games of the next week as well. And that's Penn State, Boise State. It looks like a one-sided, lopsided matchup, but I think we might be up for a nice little tough game here. What do you think, Bill?
Listen, I've been on the side of this the whole time. People are just putting Penn State in the semifinals and kind of looking past Boise State. I'm not in that camp. I will be on record. I've said from the get-go, I think Penn State wins this football game. But I think it's a good football game. I'm not going to say it's razor thin or razor close, but listen, we've seen Boise's top end performance. We've seen what they can do. They took Oregon to the ropes at Autzen. I don't think they're going to step into Happy Valley and be intimidated. I don't. I don't see it happening. If they can go to Oregon and keep their heads and play in that environment, they can do the same in Penn State. If anything, that's a detriment to Penn State because that crowd is usually, would usually be a huge advantage. But they're playing a neutral site now. It's in Arizona. Penn State will travel well, I'm sure. But I think Boise's going to too. I really do.
It's a much less shorter travel for Boise State to get there. I'll tell you that.
Definitely a more direct trip. I don't think this move's going to be too big for Boise, and I think a lot of people think it's going to be, and I don't. Like I said, and I go back. If you can go into Autzen Stadium and kind of look at that atmosphere in the eye and go play your football game, I think playing on a neutral site, I don't think it's going to be too big for them. I don't. I think the problem here is I think the strength of Boise State's team is obviously their offense. Now, that being said, their defense is good. I think a lot of people are like, Penn State's going to put up 40. I don't think they're going to. Boise State team is a rare combination of obviously an elite running game, but on top of that, they have a solid offense all around, and they have a very good defense. This is really not a group of 5 team, if we're being honest. Like if you put this team in the Big Ten or the ACC or the SEC, I'm not saying they would have won 9-10 games, but they wouldn't have. Like people are like, they're the SEC, they'd be like 3-9. No, they would not. I promise you, they would not have been. This team can play football. They know what they're doing. They're well coached. My problem with this is just again, matchups make fights. Matchups make games. The strength of Boise is obviously running the football. Penn State can be susceptible to it sometimes, but sometimes they also clamp down on it. If they make Boise State have to throw the ball into that secondary, which we saw last week against SMU, that this is where this game turns for me. I think Penn State's going to be able to run the ball on Boise State. I think the two-headed attack of Katron and Nick Singleton is going to be successful. They will throw off that. I think Penn State's going to be able to move the ball pretty efficiently against Boise State. I think Boise State hangs in this game. Again, if there was one that I think that I would need, that I would lean towards definitely covering, I think it's Penn State. I think Penn State wins this game by 10 points or more. But again, I think it's a competitive football game. I don't think Boise State gets embarrassed whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, Ashton Jeanty, he's gonna get his. I mean, there's no stopping that man. You could put 10 guys in the box and one guy playing deep safety and hand the ball. I think he's still getting 8 yards on that carry. And then that's the thing is Penn State knows what they have to do to prepare for this game. They know who they have to stop. But then guess what? So has every other team they have played, including my Oregon Ducks. And he looked absolutely phenomenal in that game. Like that was on, like I've said multiple times this season, and even Justin in the chat will agree with me. That Boise State game was the only game, even the Idaho game, even that Wisconsin close game, even the Ohio State close game. The Boise State game was the only game that felt like there was a chance we could lose. Because the way Boise State's offense ran through Ashton Jeanty, the way that we knew what they were going to do, and the way they were still able to successfully do it the entire game was absolutely terrifying. I think Penn State is truly ready for that. I mean, you see Ashton Jeanty, who's basically the size of Derrick Henry, and then you got Penn State's defensive standout in Abdul Carter. The dude is half the size of Ashton Jeanty. He's going to be trying to tackle that guy, just like you said, come about Cam Scatterby. Come the fourth quarter, tackling Ashton Jeanty is going to be a whole nother ball game, y'all. And like I said, that's what Penn State needs to do to win this game is they need to find a way to not necessarily stop Jeanty, but limit him enough so that they can get some sort of a 2-possession lead and force Maddox Madsen to beat you with his arm, because that is by far the biggest weakness on this Boise State team. And even Justin said that as well, that he doesn't trust him to see what he can do. He doesn't trust him to go out and win the game for Boise State. And I totally agree. I mean, in the game against Oregon, he threw for 42% completion percentage. In fact, over half of the games this season, he is thrown for 55% completion percentage or less. So the recipe to beat Boise State is very clear, very obvious. Force Madsen to throw the ball. But Boise State is going to do everything in their power to control the game, control the clock, and control the front seven on the offensive side of the ball to make sure Penn State doesn't have the opportunity to run up that score. So it's going to be a nice little cat and mouse game, a nice little chess match. This is going to be honestly a very well-coached game. And I think the coach that makes the least amount of mistakes is going to come out in this game, which James Franklin is on one side of the ball. So I'm honestly pulling for Boise State this game. I think Boise State 100% covers. And I do think the disrespect that the fandoms have had against Boise State being in this position, the disrespect of Ashton Jeanty at the Heisman Trophy ceremony. Boise State is going into this game with a chip on their shoulder, nothing to lose, and I think that they're going to show the world who they are. They haven't had a losing season in 21 years. They know how to win. This is going to be a game where they show the world and put themselves on the map. So I'm actually going to pick Boise State to come out, upset Penn State this week on New Year's Day. I think it's just like the Oregon Boise State game, except for this time Boise State closes out and wins the game in the fourth quarter behind a long Jeanty run. I'm picking Boise State, baby. I don't even care. I'm picking Boise State.
Did you use this helmet? Because are those the helmets they're wearing, or
no? They're just sick.
They are sick. I was just curious.
Sick helmet. Yeah, no. I just like the black helmets better.
I just didn't know if you knew something I didn't.
Oh no, I wish I knew. They haven't even shown the Ducks uniforms yet. Like they're still like they still in the shoes, but they haven't shown the official uniforms yet. So I'm just like, there's rumors of the black uniforms. There's rumors of I don't even know. There's so many. There's rumors of the Duck, the Oregon Duck lookalike uniforms. I mean, there's just so many rumors out there, but I haven't heard anything for official uniform matchups for any of the matchups yet. Where are we going next? Anything else, Bill, about Boise State, Penn State? Am I crazy for thinking that Boise State has a chance here?
No, I mean, I said I think Penn State wins, but again, I don't think Boise State's going to embarrass themselves. And again, like I said, they went into Autzen, and I know it was the beginning of the year, but that moment wasn't too big for them. I would say they're better now than they were then. I don't think they're going to walk into this game with any kind of apprehension about playing Penn State. So if Penn State doesn't come, with their B+, or above game, then they could be on the wrong end of this.
And before we jump over to Notre Dame, Georgia, which is where we're going to go next, so get yourself ready.
Control.
I'm going to put on Control.
What's up, everybody? College Control here, coming to you from the beautiful, beautiful views of Negril, Jamaica. Wanted to come on here and just give you guys kind of my take about how all 4 of the games will go. Not sure what order Bill and Alex are going to be going over the games here, but definitely wanted to just give my opinion on them. Couldn't let the week go by. I mean, college football playoff time. Couldn't let the week go by without giving you guys, how I see the games going. So, first one, I'll start off with the Penn State Boise State games because that's going to be the Tuesday night game, New Year's Eve. And I actually think this is going to be a pretty good game. The spread right now is sitting at Penn State -11, and I think that with that Boise State team, this is going to be the best defense they've seen all season. Sorry, Alex. Penn State's defense is just flat out better than Oregon. And I think, obviously, with Ashton Jeanty being as special as he is, that's going to be the number one priority of that team. If I'm Penn State, I run a lot of man coverage in that game, keep a lot of guys in the box, and make sure you don't let Ashton break off the big play. He's a great player. He's going to be able to, have good plays and, run off some explosive chunk plays there, but you want to try and limit those as much as possible. So I think that's going to be the key for Penn State's defense. On the flip side of it, though, for Boise, I think this is a game where you want to try and limit possessions. Again, similar to what I said with Penn State, trying to limit Jeanty with the explosive plays. I think if that can happen for Boise and their defense, you want to make Drew Aller and company drive the ball downfield. You want them to have those long, methodical drives. I think if Boise State can find a way to keep the time of possession pretty even, that's going to make for a really good football game here. With 2 teams that like to run the ball, I don't think the spread is going to actually get that crazy. I actually think this is a pretty tight ball game, but ultimately I like Penn State to win the game somewhere in that 7-10 range. I think Boise still covers, but I think Penn State takes care of business, and a big part of it is going to be there's going to be a point where Boise gets down and Jeanty can't run the ball as much as they would want to. And if you put the ball in Madsen's hands, I think that's ultimately what's going to spell trouble for that team. So I like Penn State in a game where Boise covers the spread, but I think Penn State takes care of business.
We heard from the man from Jamaica, and we know the order that he filmed these tapes in.
we do now. The balls on that guy. It's like, the beautiful views of Negril, Jamaica. Jerk.
Yeah, I guess I probably should have done this game first, as it is the Friday night game. But this is why Control runs the show.
That's right. You're right. Rookie producer move there. Let's do this though. For this next one, I'm assuming Notre Dame, Georgia's next.
Yes.
I would like to hear what Cottrell says before me and you go through this one.
I'm cool with it. Let me put up. Where is that? There we go. Perfect. And now let's hear from Cottrell. Let's hear from our sponsors.
Last but not least here, as long as the guys go in the order of, when the games are getting played here, I think this will be the last matchup here. Number 7 Notre Dame, traveling All-State Sugar Bowl, taking on number 2 Georgia. Georgia's 2-point favorites in this one, which kind of surprises me. I think clearly we saw the performance that Notre Dame's defense put up last week and how they were able to stifle Indiana's offense, which, to Bill's credit, he was 100% right about with Indiana in that level of competition that they faced so far. But on the flip side, for looking at the Georgia team, with their backup quarterback, I'm not sure how you still think they can be a 2-point favorite in this football game. I think it's fair to say Notre Dame, I don't want to call them frauds because they're in the quarterfinals now. They won a playoff game. Like I don't think it's fair to say that they're frauds, but I still think it is fair to say we don't know exactly what they are to this point. But I'm looking at this Georgia team where they don't have an identity in running the football. Trevor Etienne has been banged up here and there. Yes, he had a good SEC championship game, but that hasn't been consistent at all. Then I look at Gunnar Stockton, and I look at that game that he had against Texas, and I'm like, Texas dropped the ball there. No reason Georgia should have won that football game. Gunner didn't do anything impressive. Matter of fact, he made a terrible decision that Texas couldn't capitalize on late. So I think with the way Notre Dame's offense is, they won't make those same mistakes. Riley Leonard is going to be efficient, and they also have Jeremiah Love to lean on in the backfield to just give them a lot of balance in that game. So for me, I think this one's pretty easy. I'm going against that spread there. I like Notre Dame to actually move on, take care of business, and punch their tickets to the semis. I just think it's, even with the few weeks they've had to get Gunner prepared for this game, I think it's going to be too much for him in this game with the Notre Dame defense that showed you that they can stop a better offense than Georgia's without Carson Beck. Even with Carson Beck, I mean, I think Georgia was very prone to turn the ball over, things like that, but he just had a better command of the offense. And I think with Georgia knowing that Carson Beck won't be back for the rest of the season, they're basically lame ducks right now, and they're just waiting for that team to ultimately beat them. And I think it's going to be Notre Dame. So I like Notre Dame to win a tight one, but I think Notre Dame takes care of business and sends the Georgia Bulldogs fans home pretty sad.
Well, Cottrell, you know we're going to do Oregon, Ohio State last. You know that. I don't know what you're thinking. But, yeah, I totally messed up that whole order. But, Bill, what do you think about what Cottrell said about Georgia Notre Dame?
I think he's spot on with a lot of it. I broke this game down on Wednesday with Gene, and I said a lot of the same things. Listen, you can have 2 weeks of practice, and you can call it what you want. It is not the same as game speed, and you're still not going to see exactly what you saw in practice. Notre Dame is going to switch up looks. They're going to show him different things. He is not going to be able to drop back and be comfortable and just throw the ball downfield with any kind of confidence right off the bat. For me, this really is I've mentioned game flow a couple times. On the flip side of this, I think Georgia is kind of the equivalent of what Indiana was, in that Indiana was taking a huge step up to play Notre Dame. Georgia's defense is going to be a big step up from what they saw from Indiana. Indiana's got a couple of really nice players on defense. Their front seven's pretty good, but you can throw the ball on them. Whereas I think Georgia's front seven, if they can handle Jeremiah Love and company and get Notre Dame into the situation where, you know what, hey, we'll give Jeremiah 3.5 yards a carry, but we're going to make Riley Leonard throw the ball downfield over the top of us. And if he can do that, then so be it. I think Georgia could stay in the game. Jeremiah Love is a freak. He is absolutely just come onto the scene this last month and a half of the season, firmly put his name in the Heisman race for next year. And he's just a freak athlete. I hate to say it, he kind of, he's a little bit of a less powerful kind of Saquon. It's caught it in Barkley. That's what he reminds me of. The dude just does something crazy every game. That being said, I think Cottrell's most important point was this. I think as soon as if Notre Dame can get up a touchdown or two early, I think the inevitability of what's going to happen here is going to set in on Georgia very quickly. The odds of them, throwing the ball and going down the field quickly and scoring, I do not think is going to happen in this game. If the longer they can stay in this game and keep that defense confident that they have a chance to win, then I think Georgia maybe could sneak this out at the end, and run the ball and stay in the game. I know the over-under on this is like 43.5. I love the under in this game. Ultimately, as much as I don't think Riley Leonard is, a downfield threat, I still trust him way more to throw the ball than what Georgia's going to be able to do on next week. So I am going with Notre Dame here to beat Georgia and move on to the semifinals.
You know what? I looked at this game long and hard. Notre Dame, Georgia. If Carson Beck's playing, I think I'm more sure of this game. But without Carson Beck playing, it's honestly a crapshoot. And when I kind of compare these two teams, I like what I see in this game. At Notre Dame, especially, they have the top 5 ranked scoring offense and a top 5 ranked scoring defense. One of 2 teams in the country that can say that. Now, with that being said, Notre Dame wins on the ground. I love what you said, Bill, about just taking the under. The under is at 44.5 right now. So even an extra point makes me even more excited to take that under there. And I think that needs to be the bet that everyone places for this game. Because I think, honestly, as far as who wins, it's a toss-up. Because you got, with Georgia, you have Gunnar Stockton, who was able to throw 16 pass attempts against Texas's defense, completing 12 of them, 70% completion percentage, which is fantastic. However, he was only averaging 4.4 yards a completion, which kind of shows you what they were doing with him. They were not throwing the ball downfield. They were doing short little dump passes, nothing that's going to create turnovers, even though he still was able to throw an interception against Texas. Notre Dame's defense, I think, is better than Texas's. If they want to win this game, they're going to have to throw the ball, and that plays right into Notre Dame's hands. Because as far as run defense goes, Notre Dame is, like I said, Notre Dame has one of the best run defense in the country. Honestly, very underrated on this team. And that's why I think Notre Dame is going to kind of dominate that defensive side of the ball, and they're going to control the clock. They have 3 fantastic running backs with Jeremiah Love. They have Jadarian Price and then Riley Leonard. Yes, he's the quarterback, but he also acts as a running back. He had 135 rushing carries this year. Jeremiah Love, their starting running back, had 142. So you can see what kind of offense they want to run here. Jeremiah Love over 1,000 yards. Riley Leonard just under 800. These two guys can make things happen. All right. Obviously, you're going to want to set up in a pass formation. If nothing's open, guess what's going to happen? Riley Leonard is going to make things happen with his leg. He's going to extend plays. He's going to get first downs that they shouldn't get on 3rd and long situations. And then when they need him to, just like you said, Jeremiah Love has really come on the last half of the season, especially lately. It looked like an absolute train against Indiana. And like I said, I think he's put himself in the forefront of a lot of people's minds for next year for the Heisman Trophy. He's, the only game he hasn't rushed for over 100 yards in the last 4 was against USC, and he had 99 yards for 7.6 yards per carry. I really like Notre Dame here. I like Riley Leonard in this spot. I think that the inexperience of Gunnar Stockton at Georgia is going to prove the difference here. I think he's going to throw an interception at an inopportune time, give Notre Dame a short field, and Notre Dame's going to use that to capitalize, go ahead. I think that defense is going to be able to shut down Georgia. I think Notre Dame's defense also forces 3 turnovers, 2 of them being interceptions on Gunnar Stockton. I think Georgia's season ends here.
I mean, that's 3-0 for Notre Dame. I think a lot of people are looking at the game that way. I just, listen, unless Hunter Stockton comes out and does something wild, I don't think anybody has any confidence in Georgia's offense outside of ETN. And again, I think Notre Dame's defense at some point is just going to take that away and just be like, hey, you know what? We'll play man on man outside with 1 deep safety. And if you could beat us, then beat us. And I don't say it. I'm not saying the kid can't do it. Just to be put into this spot is tough, man. To not play more than 1 half of football. I know he's a little bit of a running threat, but he's not a bigger, powerful guy like Riley Leonard. I don't think he can take getting hit 6, 7, 8 times a game. I don't think that's ideal. And I just don't.
He got hit once and got a concussion against Texas. I mean, he pretty much died. I thought he was dead.
That was a brutal hit, but
yeah,
pop right back up. Got to give him credit. But again, I think Jordan Love. I think both of these defensive coordinators are going to come in with the same way. I think they're going to make the quarterback beat them. And again, if you're making me bet on one of these 2 quarterbacks, I'm going to bet on Riley Leonard out of the 2 of them, just with the experience and also being able to make plays consistently with his legs, like he has been all year. I think we're heading for Notre Dame Penn State semifinal, which would be bonkers if you would have told me that a month and a half ago. But here we are. Injuries happen. This is why we play the games on the field. And we'll see what happens. I think Kirby Smart holds the coaching edge. I think if this gets really, really late and it's tight, as much as I like Marcus Freeman, I think Kirby is probably the better critical crunch time coach between the 2. I said it on Wednesday. I think if this game is close at halftime, I would trust Kirby to make better decisions than Marcus, but I don't know if Marcus is going to have to. That's the problem. I think Notre Dame is just going to physically be able to do what they want to do, and Georgia's not going to be able to. So sticking with Notre Dame, and I think this will be a really good nightcap. And really interesting way to finish out the second round and set the semifinals.
Yeah, I'm absolutely ready for this one. I'm glad this is a nightcap. I just think Riley Leonard and Notre Dame and crew, I think experience is huge in these college football playoffs, and Riley Leonard has a buttload of experience between Duke and Notre Dame this season. The only thing I can really say, if Georgia wants to have a chance to win this game, they do got to find a way to force Riley Leonard to throw the ball. He's thrown 7 interceptions this season. He's probably one of the most turnover-prone quarterbacks left in the college football playoff. So I think that's where Georgia has to win the game, is on the defensive side. They got to win the turnover battle. But other than that, I think Notre Dame is going to pull it out. I think they're going to be smart with the ball. I think Riley Leonard's experience is going to put him over the top. Jeremiah Love's playmaking ability. I just think that Notre Dame defense is going to get their chance to shine today. And unfortunately for Gunnar Stockton, it's going to be on his dime. With that being said, we got one game remaining. Not the
main event.
Not arguably the best game of the entire college football playoff, any round included. This could be the best game.
It could be.
Where are we at? We are at right here.
Ohio State at Oregon. Rematch from week 2, week 3, whatever it was when you guys played. It's going to be played in Pasadena at the Rose Bowl. Prettiest place you could play a football game. 5:00 kick, traditional start. We will have obviously at some point, during the course of the game, one of the many times, you will see the pictures of the sun setting on the San Andreas Mountains, which is right behind the stadium. This is if you're a football player, this is heaven. This is the nicest place you could play a football game. It's just that simple. It's going to be special. A lot of people think this is a national championship game. They think whoever wins this football game wins a national championship. If I'm being bluntly honest with you, it's hard to argue it. I kind of feel the same way. I think Georgia, before the injury and kind of before they struggled, I originally had, Georgia, Ohio State in the championship game. I still think Ohio State is elite. Oregon's obviously proven they're elite. I think these are the best 2 teams left in the college football playoff. I think we're going to watch an instant classic in Pasadena next Wednesday. I really do. Everybody, I think some people are Gene was even a little bit surprised by the spread. I'm not, and I'm not saying that as in disrespect to Oregon. I'm not surprised either. I'm just going back to the way the first game ended. I mean, Ohio State literally was a second away from having a chance to win the game. This is now on neutral territory. Vegas is showing you they think Ohio State is a tick just slightly better than Oregon on a neutral field. So
what do they say about home field advantage gives you a 3-point bump?
That's always been like the cliche. I think. Listen, I will say this. I think certain sports it matters. Some it doesn't. I think basketball more than anything it doesn't matter. I think football does. I think if you're playing certain places in hockey, it does. And baseball, I think 100% does. But that's always been that's always been like the rule of thumb. So like if you're favored by home by 3, Vegas is essentially telling you the teams are even. And so forth and so on. So on a neutral field, like I said, I've seen this. This has been low as 1.5. It's gone up to 3.5. It's pretty much down around 2.5 everywhere I've seen this morning. Yep. So they're talking about a field goal game on a neutral site, which is almost what we had at Oregon on Oregon's home field. So it checks out for me. I'm not saying the game ends that way, but I'm saying from a betting spread, point of view, I understand it. I'll say that.
I'm okay with it too as a Duck fan. With the rule of the 3 points as a home and like how that game finished and how Ohio State played in the first round against Tennessee. Totally cool with how the spread looks right now.
Mm-hmm. So I think we should listen to Cottrell's first. I mean, we all know where he's going, but I would like to hear his points. I know you're going Oregon, so I'll let Cottrell go. I'll go, and then I'll let you have the last word on this one.
I'm gonna let you know, y'all. Cottrell made a novel for this one, so 4 minutes of Cottrell.
All right, this is the game that could not wait to talk about. Number 8, Ohio State, rematch against number 1, Oregon. Obviously, I think this is going to be the best game of the college football playoffs so far. They had the best game in the regular season. Obviously, we've seen it come down to, Will Howard sliding down, no time remaining. Ohio State didn't get a chance to kick the walk-off field goal there. And that was the closest game Oregon has played this entire season so far. So I think this is a game that is going to be fireworks. This is a situation where, that was Oregon's closest game the entire season. For Ohio State, you would think that this is just supposed to be this redemption story, things like that. But then that loss to Michigan really started to put a lot of doubt in a lot of people's minds, understandably so. For me, I think this is a matchup that both sides are going to adjust. For Ohio State and their side of things, I think last week's game against Tennessee was the perfect game for them. They came out and they were aggressive. Ultimately, Will Howard, I would say, played his best game as a Buckeye so far, and that's what I love to see, especially with this being the playoff time where it's a win-or-go-home situation basically every single week there. So I loved what I saw out of Will Howard, and I love what I saw from Chip Kelly and Ryan Day offensively. They were very aggressive. They wanted to get their deep shots. They wanted to get the ball to their best players, and that's what you have to do against this Oregon team, and they actually did a really good job of that the first time. On the flip side of that, with this Oregon team, I mean, them coming off of a bye and them having that time to rest up and get healthy, I think that's huge for them. Honestly, if I'm both sides here, I look at it as a double-edged sword. For me, as an Ohio State fan, I look at it as, hey, we're coming off of a great win from last week against an SEC school. That's a pretty decent program, and we get to face Oregon, who is going to be a little rusty after the bye week. They haven't had that game time feel, game time experience there. But on the flip side, if I'm Oregon, I'm like, hey, these guys had to play last week. They were in they weren't in a dogfight, but they were hitting, they were running like that. That puts more wear and tear on their body, and we get to come out completely healthy and just get right after them. And they don't have to travel far. Obviously, Ohio State's used to playing in the Rose Bowl just with the Big Ten affiliation there and their history of winning the conference. But for Oregon, they don't have to travel far. They played in the Rose Bowl damn near every year, whether it be a bowl game or a trip out to UCLA to play them. But I absolutely love this matchup. I know the first time me and Alex both said some crazy things about how our team was going to win by double digits. That didn't happen. Honestly, I don't think that's going to be the case this time around. Spread with Ohio State minus 2.5 at this point, I think is about where the game's going to end up. It's going to be a battle of who can get that stop, and I think Ohio State's defense will be able to get that stop late. I think Oregon's had an incredible season so far to this point. They're going to be able to get the explosive plays on us, but defensively, Ohio State needs to play different, and they need to play how they've been playing the entire, since that Oregon loss, how they've been playing. You play man coverage, you blitz, you send disguises and things like that. Just get more aggressive. You can't just send 4 to get home if it's not working. If it's working, fine, go with it. But if it's not working, you have to send more than just 5. So for me, ultimately, I think this game comes down to which quarterback turns the ball over. And I think Dylan Gabriel is going to ultimately give Ohio State one this game. I say it all the time in general. It is hard to beat a good team twice in the same season. I got the Bucks winning a close one. I like Ohio State to win 4 or 5 point game to ultimately move on to the semis.
Bro, Ohio State is this year's Oregon.
Bro, you'll get your chance. You'll get your chance. Okay, so
I'm gonna mute myself real quick.
So I think Cottrell brought up a bunch of interesting points, and I say interesting in I don't agree with all of them. I agree with some of them, but I think he hit on a lot of the major points or what's going to decide this game. I do ultimately, I think that the Dillon Gabriel Will Howard matchup is very important. I will say this is where I disagree with Cottrell a little bit, though. I don't think there's a snowball's chance in hell that Will Howard puts up better numbers than Dillon Gabriel in this game. I think Dillon Gabriel is just the way Oregon just throws the ball more than Ohio State does. I think Dillon Gabriel is going to have a better game than Will Howard. I think the difference is I think it's got to be the first game is in that there's no turnovers. And I think if Will Howard can be just a little bit behind Dillon Gabriel, then I think Ohio State's in really good shape late in this game if that's the case. I don't think Will Howard's going to go with throw out for 350, 300 plus. If he's in that 260 to 285 range with maybe 2 touchdowns, and Dillon Gabriel's at 310, 3 touchdowns. If it's that close, I think Ohio State's probably in really good shape. Because I think Ohio State's going to run the football just like they did against the first game. I think they learned from the Michigan game. I think Cottrell brought that up, and I think it's true. I don't think they're going to try to run the ball 35 times like they did the first game. I think they're going to spread out Oregon, and I think they're going to throw the ball more. I do. I really do. I think they're going to make Oregon take that extra guy out of the box, make him play coverage against somebody, and try to really open up the game. These games always fascinate me, and this is another point Cottrell brought up. Jim Knowles cannot come into this game as the Ohio State DC and let Dillon Gabriel see the same game that he saw the first time, because you saw what happened. You put Denzel Burke and all those guys out on the island, and Dillon Gabriel just kept torching you over and over and over again. He's got to give him a different look. He's got to give him something different. And if that means disguising blitzes, setting the 5th guy instead of only getting 4, making Gabriel get out of the pocket and throw on the run, which he's good at, so I don't know how much of an advantage that is. But you just got to – if anything, I'll still take – if I'm an Ohio State fan, I will take Dillon Gabriel throwing on the run versus letting him sit there on his spot and look at his zone or look at man-to-man. He's just going to pick you apart. I mean, listen, I know you guys have your funny thing with Dillon Gabriel. I don't think he's as good as you think he is, but I don't think he's anywhere near as bad as Cottrell thinks he is. So I think he's a very, very good, capable quarterback in charge of a very, very good offense. So I think you have to give him his due. You got to pressure him, though. You got to get him off his spot. You got to make him move. You got to make his eye see something different in this game that he didn't see in the first game or that he hasn't seen on film. And again, if that means bringing the house sometimes, then do it. If that means bringing somebody off the corner or just hit him hard, do something, get him uncomfortable. That's what you have to do. Will Howard cannot turn the football over in this game. I think Travion and Junkins, when they are used, they have to at least be explosive, average at 4.5 to 5 a game, 5 yards per carry. And I'm going to go in the reverse of as much as I think this is going to be an offensive game, and I do. I think the over is a lock in this game. I think the over-under is low in this game for what it should be with these two offenses. You see it. College is a little different than the NFL. Usually when you put 2 elite offensive teams on the field, and these teams are both at, I don't care how good the defenses are. In college, the offense, for the most part, always seems to win out for me. I think both these teams blow by that over-under. I really do. I think we're in the 60s or 70s in this game. I think a neutral field, I think, I don't want to say it's a redemption thing, but maybe Will Howard gets the play again doesn't run out a second short. The only thing that concerns me about this, and my pick is, I have no faith in Ohio State's kicking game right now. None. But I think it's a field goal game. I'm going to go Ohio State 41, Oregon 38. I think it's a high-scoring game. I think it's a great football game. Said it from the get-go. I think it's an instant classic. I'm sticking with Ohio State because I picked them at the beginning of the year. That's not a diss at Oregon at all. They're number 1. I've given you your flowers all year. They're elite. I just think, like I said, I'm just going to stick with my pick. I'm not going to be shocked at all if Oregon wins this football game.
Let's stick with our picks from earlier in the year. Let's go Ole Miss. Oh, wait. They're not in it anymore. Bill, we have seen – hold on a second, Bill.
You can't give me Ole Miss because you stuck with Ole Miss till the very end, to the bitter end. So I want to hear that shit.
But here's the thing, Bill.
Tell me why Oregon's going to win.
We've watched this season, okay? Beginning of the year, you picked Ohio State. we watched this season. And you know what? Here's the key factor. Dillon Gabriel was sacked 7 times in the first 2 weeks of the Oregon season. 3 times against Idaho, who played a fantastic game that day, and 4 from Boise State, who also played a fantastic game against our front. But since then, he's only been sacked 6 times for the remainder of the season. Ohio State got to Dillon Gabriel 0 times. Just like you said, Dillon Gabriel was virtually able to just pick apart the Ohio State secondary. The Ohio State secondary did not look like they belonged in that game. And here is the funny part, is that we were only running a 2 wide receiver set, Evan Stewart and Tez Johnson, because Trayshawn Holden got ejected earlier in the game. Now we're going to have a 3rd receiver, Trayshawn Holden, who had a huge game against Michigan, over 120 yards, and Terrence Ferguson, another absolute beast of a weapon. I would like to compare him to Travis Kelce. I'm not going to say he's going to have as big of a career as Travis Kelce, but as far as size, stature, catching ability, and how he kind of moves off the ball, I think Terrence Ferguson is one of the best tight ends in the country. I think having all 4 of those weapons, along with Jordan James running like the animal that he is, I think this offense is going to move up and down the field. And here's where Ohio State is going to struggle. Quinshon Judkins and TreVeyon Henderson, they are no longer a 2-headed backfield. They are a 1-headed backfield. TreVeyon Henderson is having a fantastic season. In the last 6 games, though, Quinshon Judkins is averaging under 3.5 yards per carry. He's averaging 2.6 against Iowa. He had 2.9 against Purdue, 2.9 against Nebraska. Like, he averaged under 4 yards per game, under 4 yards per carry against Tennessee and Michigan. Dude is not having this season that he has had in previous. So it's going to come down to TreVeyon Henderson having a good game. And I don't think he's going to be able to, because Oregon is going to be bringing Jordan Burch to play this game. He was not able to play the first time he played Ohio State. In fact, he's only played in 8 games this season, totaling 8.5 sacks, 1 forced fumble, and 5 pass deflections. This dude is a game changer for that Oregon defense, and he did not get a chance to play against Ohio State. So I would love to see Ohio State drop back and have Will Howard pass the ball, because that's just going to give Jordan Burch all the time in the world to rack up his sack numbers and take care of business. Now, I get this is going to be a fantastic game, and I agree this is going to be a 1-score game. I think Ohio State played fantastic against Tennessee last week, making Tennessee look like a school from the MAC. That's how they made Tennessee look last week, the way they dominated. But Oregon is rested. Oregon is healthy. Oregon is ready to go. Dillon Gabriel is coming up. He's ready. He just lost. He came from the Heisman Trophy ceremony. He's humble. He's ready. Evan Stewart's going to have a big game. Tez Johnson's going to have a game. Jordan James is going to have a game. 2 receivers are going to go over 100 yards. Dillon Gabriel is going to throw for another 350 plus. And Oregon's going to have a field day at their true home of the Rose Bowl. Oregon wins. I think it's probably a full touchdown game. I'm thinking 38-31. Ohio State continues to score 31 against Oregon. Oregon gets that extra touchdown, takes care of business. Oregon 38, Ohio State 31. It's going to be a fantastic game, though. I think the addition of Jordan Burch on the defensive side of the ball is a big enough difference where Ohio State's not going to be able to win this game.
Again, I will not be shocked if it plays out that way. But I think everybody can agree this is going to be an absolute fantastic football game. I will be heartbroken if this ends up being a rout one way or the other. Just one team doesn't show. It would suck so badly. I don't think it's going to happen, though. So we got through. We're on time. We actually have a couple minutes left. Anything else you would like to bring up, sir?
I honestly don't think so. I think that this is I think I might have, hold on a second. I do. 1 second. Boom. Eliminator Mountain. I made it this week.
People on the mountain. There we go.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's been a fantastic college football season. As you can see, I added green boots in there for you, right above Indiana.
That is incredible.
I added some green boots for you. But other than that, man, I mean, this is next week when we get to the Final Four. We got to look at who our Final Four was at the beginning of the year, so we can compare, see how many we each got right. But I think this is going to be fantastic. I think the only team that really might not belong in this final 8 teams might be Arizona State. But then again, with how hot they've been lately and what their offense has been showing, I think they do deserve it. So I think these are the best 8 teams in college football this year.
I think it's a fair representation, and it's pretty close to what it should be. Again, in a perfect world, like I said, would we want Alabama Michigan, all them in there, yeah, we would. But it's again, if the sport was that predictable every year, it would also take away from it. Like, this has been fun because Boise State won 11-1. We all talked about how unpredictable the Big 12 was going to be all year, and all three of us picked crazy teams, and none of the three of us got it right. Arizona State out of nowhere won it. So, you know what I mean? Like, that's what makes it great. We didn't even talk
about Arizona State in the Big 12 preview show. We didn't even mention
nobody. And again, that's what makes it fun. That you have to let the results that happen on the field dictate what happens. And Boise State earned the right to get there. Arizona State earned the right to be there. I'm not going to say Indiana did, but other people thought they did. But obviously SMU, Clemson, Tennessee, again, I don't want to hear Alabama with 3 losses and Ole Miss with 3, and then people are bitching about Tennessee. They only had 2 losses. So, I mean, I think you're right. I think the best 8 teams are there. I think the circumstances and maybe the scenarios in which we got there are not what we all thought, obviously. Like I had Ohio State, Georgia in the championship game, which could still happen. I think it's highly unlikely now with the Carson Beck injury and just the way Georgia's kind of played all year, to be honest. But, it's listen, that's what makes this sport great. And there's every other sport's the same way. You can't go by just what's on paper, but college football is unique in a lot of certain ways. And it's those type of ways and those type of things that are the reasons that I love it. So, I love the 8 teams we have left. I think it's interesting. I have to just feel at some point there's an upset somewhere, and I don't know where it is. I find it hard to believe, like I said, with my tinfoil hat, that we're going to go the first college football playoff and we're just going to go chalk all the way through it. In some way, that would completely, vindicate the college football playoff committee saying they got it right. But at some point, I got to think somebody pulls an upset somewhere. If it's Boise, again, Ohio State or Oregon, either one of them is not really. I don't consider that an upset either way. Whoever wins that game, Arizona State over Texas would be an upset for sure. And then Notre Dame, Georgia with the situation of quarterback for Georgia, I really wouldn't consider that an upset either. So, but expect the unexpected. We've said that all year. We wanted chaos and we've got it. So I don't think we're done yet. I think somebody pulls one here sooner or later, but we'll see.
Boise State
could be. Yeah. The meltdown in Happy Valley. I wouldn't lie and say it would be kind of enjoyable to probably watch, but it's
there was a time, Bill, when Boise State played a big school. I think there was called Oklahoma. And in the Fiesta Bowl, they were picked to, I think they were like 18-point underdogs in that game. And they ran this, just like Justin said right here, the Statue of Liberty heard round the world. Honestly, this memory is ingrained into my brain. Boise State winning that game and the running back running it in, throwing the football in the stands and proposing to his girlfriend on camera. Like, that whole scenario is like engraved in this brain of mine, how amazing it was. And I'm expecting another one.
Everybody remembers the Statue of Liberty, but everybody forgets the hook and ladder before that. They even put in a position for that.
The hook and ladder was so. That was great.
It was. Again, I'm here for it, man. I mean, I think it's going to be a great, day and a half of football. I've loved the college football playoff so far. I think it's only going to get better, but we'll see what happens. On Tuesday and Wednesday. It's gonna be a fun 24 hours of football for sure.
I took off New Year's Day. I ain't missing the game.
I have a half day New Year's Eve and I'm off New Year's Day anyway, so I'm gonna be firmly planted in front of the TV because we don't do much anyway. I think New Year's Eve's overrated. It's just my personal opinion.
I stay up till midnight every day.
Same. So I mean, I think if we barely made the ball drop last year, and we were like bed. I think New Year's Eve's great if you're going to if you're hosting a cool house party and you don't have to go anywhere. I just with the amount of bozos anymore, I don't want to be on the road at 11 o'clock with a bunch of drunk people driving around. It's just not. I don't know. I think New Year's Eve's cool when you're in your early 20s and it's you go to Ragers or go to clubs with your whole group of friends, and you have that whole scene still. But other than that, I don't know.
Just be thankful that Georgia players will not be on the road this year.
Well, not for New Year's Eve. New Year's Day they could be.
That's true. But no, I think that's it, Bill. I think we've kind of wrapped up. We've somehow survived a show without Cottrell. Us two.
We did.
Smooth, almost exactly on time. I mean, maybe Cottrell's the one slowing us down. I don't know.
Could be. Blowhard. He's always, just making these points that are way too long.
Right?
You keep him down as little videotape segments. Maybe that's what we need to do from now on.
Make him record and pre-record. I love it.
Yeah. But Cottrell, all seriousness, we miss you.
Mm-hmm.
He will be back, I think, this weekend. So, but
Hopefully.
enjoy the rest of your vacation in Jamaica. Hope you choke on a drink. Other than that, miss you, love you. And you too, both of you, I guess, good luck. Good luck in your game. I'm sure it'll be I will be interested to see the group chat when that game is going on. It's always fun for me.
If Oregon wins, I will be going live just to laugh. Just to laugh, and then I'm going to end it. But with that being said, I got nothing else to say. Go Ducks. I cannot wait for New Year's Eve, New Year's Day. And everybody enjoy your Saturday. There's still great bowl games on this weekend to watch. So don't forget to turn on ESPN, Fox, wherever you got going, because there's still some great games today.
Absolutely is. And that being said, we will see everybody next Saturday.
Oh, yeah. That's me, huh?